Hey, Vaughn.
Hey Kim, how are you?
I am okay. Happy Thursday. Happy Combine Thursday.
That's right. Yeah,
The NFL never sleeps.
workout start today.
Sure do. Well, we're going to talk about that. So, hey, everybody, welcome to But First Football. And we are, week two past the Super Bowl. So, we're into a whole different phase of football, but still tons of stuff to talk about. And the combine starts today, goes through the weekend. Saturday, of course, is the big day with the quarterbacks and stuff. But I want to get to that. But I know we're going to talk about in our fundamental section today the coaching and GM changes and some of your thoughts on what you see going on so far this offseason.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with the Jags, just close to your heart because Lincoln Cohen, who look, this is what's going on with the hire of Liam Cohen. He turned around the career of Baker Mayfield. Mayfield, since partnering with Liam Cohen in Tampa, has been pretty consistent. Definitely on the top half of quarterbacks, and you can argue where he fits in that top half. But in terms of where his career was at when he left Cleveland versus now, I think he's turned it around. You can say that I'm sure Liam Cohen had a huge part to do with that. So the hire was to get their quarterback in have a similar effect because he kind of has to this point hasn't lived up to the hype of when he was coming out of Clemson, and so I'm sure that that's part of it. However, there was some tomfoolery going on with the recruitment. It was just messy. He
Very.
although perhaps it was perhaps when they let go of Trent Baalke, maybe that was why he decided, oh well, maybe now I'll look at the job. But it was messy either way. He wasn't as straightforward as a lot of people would have preferred he had been during the whole recruitment process.
Well, and then let's just remember how he went, Duval. Not just like over it. Oh, he done with him. But let me ask you this, because yes, he absolutely was instrumental in helping Baker with consistency, and his play calling was brilliant. I mean, honestly. But do you think that he, as a head coach, not an offensive coordinator, is going to be able to have the same impact on Trevor Lawrence that he had on Baker Mayfield? Because you're a head coach, you got a lot of other things you got to deal with.
I doubt he'll look. I don't know if he's decided if he's going to call plays or not, but even if he does, I doubt he'll be able to have that same personal one-on-one relationship that he had in Tampa. Just because, like you said, there's a lot of hats you have to wear in terms of media responsibilities. You have to check in with every position group. You can't just focus solely on the quarterback position, and just all the decision making is on your hands, football wise. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he'll have a very strong, important connection with Trevor, but I doubt it'll be the same or as intense when you're in that room with him every single day for the length. And look, that again, that's the caveat is that I'm not sure if he's calling plays yet. I haven't heard that information. If he's calling the plays, then yeah, he'll be in those rooms. Still, though, not quite as much as your normal coordinator, though, right?
Yeah.
So,
So that GM that they hired for him or with him or however that all went down, he looks like he's 12. I mean, is he even old enough to drink? Where
well,
did he come from?
Well, the interesting part is they hired the coach before the GM, and like I said last week, typically, and look, maybe they're trying to break the mold. Maybe they're not trying to be not typical. And look, our fortunes haven't been great to this point being typical, so maybe we'll be atypical. But normally, the GM is the boss of the head coach and would like to be involved in that hiring process. So they went kind of, it was a little bit backwards. I'm not exactly sure why they did it that way, but that's what they're choosing to do. And so, it's incumbent upon him to say, hey, this is my guy. This is my coach. I wasn't involved in the hiring process, but he represents me. He represents us. So I need to help him be as successful as possible.
So, who do you think of all of the head coaches that have moved around or been hired this offseason? Who do you think is going to make the biggest and fastest impact on the team that they have gone to?
Um, Maybe Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore, I think he's proved himself over the last few years. Kellen Moore hired by the Saints. He was in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts most recently, but he had a stint in uh, L.A. with the Chargers, couple few years in Dallas, and I think he's proven himself over the last few years that he's a pretty good offensive mind. And Dallas. I'm sorry, excuse me, the Saints. They've had a lot of turmoil since Allen, well, during Allen's tenure in
Yeah.
terms of offensive consistency. So I think Kellen Moore might be able to get them up and running.
Sounds
Um,
like they're going to stick with Derek Carr. I read
yeah,
that today. So, I mean, again, consistency is probably good. Trying to change quarterbacks every year doesn't seem to be doing anyone any favors that's trying to do that. So, that
and I wouldn't say wonderkind in terms of maybe talent, but just in terms of his age. He's the youngest head coach. He's only 36, pretty
I
young.
know. Yeah, really
Maybe
young.
being able to relate to the players more because I'm sure they have some guys who are 36, if not close, a couple, few
Yes,
maybe.
yes, they
So
do.
right, so maybe he'll be able to relate to them, and I think he'll have an opportunity. Now, I haven't seen exactly who he filled his staff out with. I haven't seen all the names, but assuming he's getting competent guys who know how to teach and can take what he's trying to install and disseminate that information to the guys, then yeah, I think he'll have an opportunity to come out of the gate fast.
Everybody is talking about Vrabel in New England, and it seems as if like he's a wonderkin or one whatever it is. I keep thinking of Ted Lasso, Wonder Kid. Um,
Right.
I love that. I love that
Make,
show. I'm
make
obsessed with that show. I just watched it again for like the 500th time. But I mean, yes, they have Drake May, but they've got some real challenges with personnel, the rest of the team. So I would be pretty surprised if he can get in there and make a super impact so quickly without some major player options.
Right. So Vrabel, I think they hired him because he has a modicum of success down in Tennessee as a head coach, but he played 14 years for the Patriots. He was instrumental in their first playoff, huge playoff run of success where they won 3 Super Bowls in the early 2000s. So he knows the culture, he knows the organization, he knows the ownership very well. So I think they wanted that, and they had that in Jared Mayo, but he didn't have the track record of success that that uh, that
Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel had. So I think that's disappointing, maybe a little unfair. But I'll say I think it was more about not necessarily their drafting, but even some of their free agent. They just haven't had the talent over the last few years. Even going back to when Belichick was there those last few years, in terms of it wasn't just that they didn't have a quarterback; they were bereft of talent throughout that organization, and so. Gerard Mayo inherited that, and now Vrabel's inheriting that. So yeah, it might take him a little bit of time to get them up to speed.
It goes back to that argument. Was it Brady or was it Belichick?
Yeah,
I don't think Belichick was a good drafter, you know?
definitely not a receiver. See, that's the thing people forget. If you go back to those early 2000 teams, they were full of talent everywhere.
Yes,
Over the years, he proved not to be so great at picking wide receiver talent, but they still were talented everywhere else. So
true.
yeah,
So what about I am most interested, and not just because my personal love of this team, but what are your thoughts on Pete Carroll in Vegas and like the Brady piece of that? I think it could be really interesting if they're able to solve the quarterback dilemma there. What do you think about that?
I think Pete Carroll's similar to a situation I was in when they brought in Marty Schottenheimer.
Mm.
They both knew how to build programs, how to build consistently winning programs. And whether or not you win a Super Bowl or win a championship or not, because he did it at the collegiate level back in the early 2000s with USC, they were a
Mm.
powerhouse year in, year out. But whether or not you win the championship, you need a little bit of luck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not guaranteed, but it was guaranteed that his teams were going to compete for that championship. His NFL teams were going to compete for playoff Super Bowl, and so that's what you're hiring when you hire a Pete Carroll. And so the Raiders, who have been down for so very long, despite all the different coaching changes, all the personnel changes, when you bring in Pete Carroll, you know he knows how to build the team in terms of talent on the field and in terms of culture, and that's what you're bargaining now. He's in his well into his 70s, but
Yes.
yeah, but everything you hear about Pete is that he's full of energy. He's as energetic as the players are, and so assuming that that holds out, the Raiders have turned around their fortunes. I feel confident saying that already.
Did you hear that Tom Brady is wooing Matthew Stafford?
I did not. No, I know there's some turmoil about his. Just basically the Rams don't want to pay him as a top quarterback, and not because they don't love him and don't want him back. They want him at their number, but because of they don't want to commit that much of their cap to their salary cap to a guy who's let's say like he's probably closer to the end than he is the beginning at this
Oh, for
stage.
sure. Yeah,
Still,
he's
still
37.
but still very capable. And they've seen that no one ages like Brady except for Brady. They all the cliff the Grim Reaper comes for them all, and they don't want to be held in the look. You get paid for what you will do. That's what NFL teams want to pay you for what you will do, not for what you have done for us. And so that's where the disconnect is, and that's why there's talk of, well, then perhaps we'll trade him so we can at least get something for him. And so yeah, I mean that's smart on Brady. They've had quarterback issues for many years now, and to get a guy like Stafford in who is very capable as a recent Super Bowl would be fantastic for them.
I don't know who the Rams would get. Like, that's the thing is like, there's just, you and I have discussed ad nauseum the free agency market with the QBs. And yes, there's a lot of them, but, you know, to the caliber of Matthew Stafford, I don't know.
That's the thing; they don't just grow on trees. Uh,
Yeah.
and the kids coming out of college, in particular this year, which we'll get into a little bit more later, there's no guarantees that they're going to be great NFL quarterbacks. And you
Right.
know, right now they can say, yeah, we've got one of the top QBs in the league, but again, they want to get him at their number, not his number, not at the market rate.
Right. Yes. Oh gosh. Now you brought up that you had played for Marty Schottenheimer, which I forgot about. How many years was he in San Diego?
Oh, at least three or four.
So you
Yeah.
had Bobby Ross and then you had Marty, or was there
No, no,
someone?
no, no. Bobby and then Kevin Gilbride and then
Oh,
Jimmy
right.
Jones and then Mike. Uh, oh, geez, why can't I think of Mike's name?
Mike White?
No, no,
No,
no.
he was the Raiders.
So Marty came in after. So I had played for five different head coaches when I was with the Chargers, and Marty came in at the tail end of my career with the Chargers. But Brian was on that staff, and
Oh,
so
he was.
he was, yes. And so I know Brian, and the thing, someone you hate to see the talk because the talk is that well he wasn't the first or second choice, and he was ultimately hired probably because he was the offensive coordinator last year. And so, and the talk is that he had a very strong relationship with Dak Prescott. And so, one of the things in hiring him is I'm sure he's going to run the same offense that he ran last year. So, that continuity, they don't have to install new offense. There'll be some familiarity with the returning players. And that makes it a difference, and you can gain a little bit of an edge when you don't have to, at least on the teams who are putting in new offenses, right? You're that much farther ahead than they are. So that was part of it. So look, as much as I hate Dallas, I wish him luck, and I hope he's successful. I do because obviously, like I said, I know the guy, and I would never want to wish ill will on him like
So,
I
in your opinion,
yeah.
with all of the recent coaching changes, and I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say here, but what is the toughest job?
Oh, good question. I don't think it's Dallas, despite
Oh,
Jerry's.
you don't?
No, I don't. I don't. It, look, you got Jerry meddling. You've got the expectations of the Cowboy fan base and just everyone, America's team, right? But I think there are. I would say the Jags' job is harder, just because can Liam Cohen get the best out of Trevor? Are there enough other pieces in place? I know when Peterson got there, the previous head coach, Doug Peterson, got
Oh,
there, they tried to upgrade the roster a little bit, and just things still just didn't seem to work out. So is there still
yeah,
enough talent on the roster where they can make a run and get to look, they've got a playoff win in the last 5 years. I don't know if you remember, but they were down
I
27
do.
to the Chargers and they came back and ended up winning the game.
Yeah,
So they're not so far away from success. But yeah, I would say that one. And some people might even look at the Raiders, but I just believe in Pete so much that I feel like he's going to. It's like a done deal for me that he's going to turn that organization around. One thing I want to say about Schottenheimer too. The other thing that's kind of look, he's got well over 20 years experience as a coach in the league, and he's just now getting his first head coach shot, which you kind of like that's a long time. And so I
yeah.
don't think that's typically the path. Guys 20 plus years in are getting their first head coaching experience. So, look, like I said, I'm rooting for them, and hopefully they do well.
I hope so too. I mean, it just seems like God, how awful you must feel when everyone's like, "Oh, he's like the bottom of the barrel." Like, what?
Right, right.
But I also, this is like really uncharacteristic of me. But James was reminding me that I'm a pacifist, but I'm also a football fan, so this also would fit with that. I hope that I'm pretty sure that we actually play the Jaguars this year, and I hope we destroy them. I just do because I just still am bitter about the way that all went down. It was ugly, it was unprofessional, and I'll be out for blood that game. I think everyone will be. It won't just be me. We'll all be rooting strongly for destruction of the
Right.
Jags. So
Well,
I know that's very mean.
as we're
I'm
sitting here,
sorry.
one that's very similar that I didn't think about that we didn't touch on the Bear situation. That might be another tough one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ben
Yeah.
Johnson, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions, who had a lot of buzz behind his name because the Detroit Lions have had one of the best offenses, one of the better offenses in the league these last 2-3 years, and he was their offensive coordinator. So he was the design and designer of that offense, and so they're hoping that they can take their young quarterback and be add some stability, add some innovation, and get some of those plays maybe we saw when that quarterback was at USC.
Right.
And great improviser, throw on the run, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, both him and is it Aaron Glenn? I think they've got
Yeah.
some two very different situations, but yeah, I don't know. I forgot about them. How weird is that? The two
Oh,
of
they've
the
been
most like sought after guys, and I completely forgot about them.
because they've been forgettable.
It's not sexy. So, should we move on into the frenzy and talk a little bit about the combine and stuff, or
Sure.
did we miss anybody that you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean you mentioned him at the end, Aaron Glenn with the Jets, and he's got that buzz being in Detroit. Great coordinator, defensive coordinator over these last few years. A former player, played close to 15 years at cornerback, but has been a great defensive coordinator for the Lions over the last couple of years. And again, another tough situation. Just the Jets have
Very.
been a mess, and it'll lead into something that maybe we'll have time for at the end with the article you sent me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the combine, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts on the guys that aren't participating. Like, it's kind of a bummer, It's like you get all excited for the combine, and then some of these top names are not going to throw or whatever.
right.
What do you think?
Well, Well, first, let me just say real quick for those who don't know, the combine is where the top 300 NFL prospects coming out of college go to showcase their talents. And so every NFL head coach, every NFL executive, all the scouts who are typically on the road throughout the season, they're all in India. It's back in Indianapolis this year. Um, and so everyone meets there, and these top 300 guys get to showcase their just pretty much raw athleticism. There's some, so 40-yard dash, your broad jump, your vertical jump, your bench press. How many times can you bench press 225 pounds? And there's different standards, obviously, for each position group. That's how you're tested. You're tested by position group. Um, and then there's also interviews, medical exams. If you've got an injury from college, they're going to grill you. They're going to X-ray it. They're going to MRI it. They're going to ask you about it 1,000 different times, 1,000 different ways. Cognitive exams. They no longer use the Wonderlic. I didn't realize they actually stopped using that back in 2022.
Mm.
Um, but they do have other cognitive tests, other tests they use to test cognition, psychological exams, and they interview you. Now, famously, the quarterbacks, you always kind of see their process in terms of a coach running them through drills on the blackboard or the whiteboard. But all position groups, any players eligible to get interviewed because they want to see, hey, what's the cut of this guy? What's the cut of his jib, right? And so that's what the combine is for. Although they also will have workouts at their schools, and so they'll have other
Right.
opportunities to
Pro
work.
day.
And so, to your point, not everyone, the top echelon, maybe call it guys being considered to go in the top 10 of the draft, it's not unusual for them to go to the combine, do the interviews, but not work out. And the idea behind that is that they want to control the environment for when they do work out in front of scouts and the coaches and the executives. They want to control every facet of that workout. And a lot of some people feel that maybe the Indianapolis it's turf, but not grass, but perhaps it's slower, and then the field they plan to run on is maybe a little faster, and maybe we'll buy
Mm.
them a tenth of a second faster running or doing a shuttle drill or whatever it is. But they want to control the environment, and that's what that's about.
Remember last year, I think that by some of the top QBs not being there, it really benefited like Michael Penix and is it Milton, the guy that was from Tennessee, I think. I mean, they came off looking so great, and both of them got drafted. And now look at Michael Penix Jr. He's a starting QB.
I think ultimately you never know. Like hindsight is 2020, but you never know if you're hurting yourself or helping yourself. I don't think there's any stigma with not working out, just in terms of the NFL people understand it, they get it. They'll tell you, "Hey, man, I'm sure they're putting pressure on them as they're walking around. Hey, we'd love to see
Mm.
you work out, right?" But ultimately, it's not going to be held against you because ultimately, talent is the biggest currency, and so if you've got
Right.
it, it's not going to be held against you that you didn't work out at the combine. You chose to do it at your own personal workout or your team's workout, your school's workout day. So I don't mind it. I understand their decision. I
Okay.
don't mind it. I don't have a position on it either way, to be quite honest.
You know what I think looks like the most fun job at the combine?
What's that?
I would want to be the guy out there who gives them the instructions. Like, okay, guys, you're gonna run and you're gonna hit this, and then you're gonna run and you're gonna hit this, and then you're gonna run back and you're gonna. I mean, I think that, and then it looks so fun.
So
I
those
guess
are
those
all.
are assistant coaches, right?
Yeah, those are all assistant coaches, and I don't know how they run through and determine who's going to run the drills or not. But yeah, those are just assistant coaches, and this is the stuff they'd probably be doing with their own guys if they were back at their own facility, going through drills, and this is how they teach it, and hey, this is what we're expected of you, and this is what you finish through the drill, and yada yada yada. So
Yeah, I think that looks super fun. And then the camaraderie of all the guys when they've completed the drills, they all come together.
yes,
It's cool.
yeah. Yeah, because that's
So
definitely a situation where you're not rooting against anyone; you're rooting for yourself, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
definitely.
And just like seeing, fun stuff. I was watching a little of it this afternoon, and the defensive guys were out there, and some big guys running the 40, but then they're doing their drills with the tackle dummies and stuff. It's just fun. It's fun to see. I like it. I'd love to go one day.
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
cool.
I mean, it's funny how the NFL has monetized it, and there's days where it's not just from my understanding, it's not just execs and scouts in the stands. Like I believe they've opened it up to the public, and obviously they
Yeah.
do it up because it's on TV. But
Yeah.
yeah, like NFL is undefeated in that respect.
They are undefeated, and everybody's there. And I saw last night, Goodell. They were talking a lot about the whole she football thing with the women. They had a panel of women in football, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Anything else about the combine that you're interested in or you want to bring up?
Just some of the top players that will be there now, whether they work out or not. I hear Travis Hunter isn't one workout now. Travis Hunter is the University of Colorado Heisman Trophy winner. He played both wide receiver and cornerback, and by most assessments played at a All American level at both positions. And it's just such a rarity for a guy to go both ways. He got like his stamina must be off the charts just because
Yeah, no kidding.
he played 90% of the snaps at both positions, and that's just incredibly hard. And his plan, at least what he's saying, is that he wants to play both at the next level. And I'm sure from what I've been reading, a lot of teams want to use him at cornerback, and I'm sure they'll have an offensive package for him. I doubt it'll be a situation where he plays both as a full time starter at both positions. Just
Yeah.
can't imagine that that's possible. Now he might be him. He might be that freak of nature amongst a league of freaks who could possibly do it, but it'd be so incredibly taxing. But he's an incredibly talented guy. Shador Sanders, who was his quarterback at Colorado, is one of the top QB prospects. Again, the son of Deion Sanders, the Hall of Famer. I believe he's not throwing, but he'll
No.
be there. He's one of the top prospects. Cam Ward, who was at the University of Miami, again, another one of the top QB prospects, both expected to go in the top 10. Ashton Genty from Boise State, the top running back prospect in this class, just ran for an incredibly ridiculous number of yards. And so he'll be there, and whether he displays the physical or just is there for the interviews and the tests, the mental testing, I'm not exactly sure, but those are kind of the big names. I kind of looked through, and unless you're just a huge college football fan, there's not a ton of names this year that are just popping off the list
Yeah.
of guys who are going to be there. But those four names definitely are names that people are aware of and know who they are.
Well, it's always fun to watch, I think. So I'm excited to see
Yeah,
some of it.
you
I
know, I'm
wanted
all
to talk a little bit about the NFL Players Association's ranking of the teams that
yes,
I sent you. Very interesting, and maybe we'll have to, because we're getting low on time, but just a couple of things. So it was. So I guess they do this survey every year, and it looked like in the article that there had been some progress made on a lot of teams, things that had been brought up in this survey in the past, and there'd been some improvements made. But the top five teams, in terms of all of the players loving the team. The questions were like family, how they treat the families, weight room, nutrition, locker room, travel, head coach, strength staff, and or owner. So
yeah,
those were kind of the questions. So the number one team was Miami,
right,
which is really interesting. Then Minnesota, Falcons, Raiders, and Chargers
yeah,
in the top five.
yeah,
Interesting.
yes, very,
Bottom five: Steelers, Jets, Browns, Patriots, and dead last were the Cardinals.
yeah,
So, and like the locker room was a lot of the bottom fives related to the locker room. But just a couple of things, and I would love to know, like, we've talked about your travel before, but a lot of teams rate the travel low because the players have to sit in the back and the coaches and the staff get to sit in first class.
Yeah.
Feels kind of unfair based on, if nothing else, size.
Well, that's how it was for me most of my career. Like we were in the back, the coaches were in first class, and then once Marty Schottenheimer got there, he completely changed it up. And if you were a fifth year guy or above, you sat in first class, and the coaches. I remember
Oh,
some of the coaches kind of grumbled a little bit, so that had been there previously, kind of grumbled a little bit, like, "Oh, we're getting kicked to the back, right?" And to be honest, we were kind of used to it the other way, and so we kind of not pushed back. We grumbled ourselves because we were like, no, just keep us in the back. We know what we're doing back there on these plays. But
the card games and
yes,
such,
exactly.
the gambling,
Yeah,
the
um,
gambling with the per diem money.
yeah. There you go. um,
Well, but I will say, so the Patriots, they really trashed their travel though. They said their plane is crappy and
yeah,
it's so old that there's like ashtrays in the seats.
yeah. I believe the Patriots are one of the only. If they might be the only, but if not one of the only teams that have their own plane to travel on. But yeah, but from what I hear, it's pretty old and pretty beat up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how they stay hotel wise, but I just know back to when we would stay at a DoubleTree, right? Like that's the level of hotels that we would stay at, depending on the place. But more often than not, we stay at like a DoubleTree, which is fine, right? It's a fine
Yeah.
hotel.
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs apparently hate their home hotel where they stay. They
Oh,
said
is that
it's
right?
dirty
Yep.
and nasty.
Well, that's how ours was with the Town and Country.
Oh, right. The town and country. Yeah. Yeah.
It's since then had a beautiful renovation, but when we were staying there, it was old. It was, I guess, it was clean enough, but yeah, it was pretty run down, pretty beat up. And so it's interesting to hear that there's still organizations that are dealing with it, and that's what again, like I said that before. I talked to you about how the NFL is a big corporate organization, but the teams, many of them are mom and pop shops, right? And so you
Right.
know
Yeah.
what their level of ability to spend on travel is varies from team to team, and what they're willing to spend on travel varies from team to team. So it's very different and very specific to the team. So yeah, so stuff like this
Well,
is supposed
the
to improve overall conditions.
right. Well, and it seems like it's made a difference. But the other thing that I thought was interesting, and we can dig more into this next week, but so many comments about how the families are treated. And I was shocked to see that even the Bucks, so up until this year, they made this change based on this survey, apparently, but they were charging the players $90 per child for babysitting during the game.
Oh, really?
So I was like, whoa. And then there were some other teams that charged for babysitting or other teams who didn't have it at all. And I mean, it feels like football's become like a much more family sport. Like in so many teams, you see their families are on the field before the game.
Yeah.
Not all. And that was like mentioned in some of the teams' critiques of how the families are viewed. And then some of the families have to pay for parking. I think the Chargers were one of them, like the parking situation. And if you're looking at like San Francisco or the Chargers, like those stadiums are not easy to get to because just you're dealing with California traffic, and then you're going to pay for parking and then pay for babysitting, and I was just surprised.
Yeah, I mean, every situation is different, and I just, you think back, the players are getting there several hours before the game, so yeah, even the home games are probably rolling in by themselves, and then the families coming
Yep.
coming down after them, and if they don't allow them to park in the team parking, then yeah, then I guess they got to pay to get into the
And
stadium,
then
and
with all the kids and all the stuff, yeah, it's a lot. It's a
yeah,
lot.
and look,
Yeah, we can dig into this more next week because there was a lot
sure,
of interesting stuff.
yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah,
But what did
it's
you want
fun.
to? Well, we have just a minute or two left. So what did you want to talk about from that article about the Jets? We were talking about Aaron
Oh, just
Glenn.
saying how the Jets for ownership they got an F or F minus. I can't
Yeah,
remember which one,
yeah,
but and so my thing was just that it's interesting because look, the ownership knows about the survey. They've done it the last 3 years, and I'm sure they'll continue to go forward doing it. And so, hey, this is what my players think about me. But at the same time, they're smart enough to know, well, the players know that we're aware of this. So are they just trying to manipulate me? Are they so
right,
there's kind of this back and forth game being played almost where the players know they're going to see it. The ownership group knows that they know they're going to see it. But ultimately, yeah, if what they say is true about there have been improvements and the average has gone up, then that's great for the league and the players. But yeah, your
well, on
experience definitely varies
the
based on where you are.
the bottom five all mentioned ownership: the Jets, the Steelers, the Patriots. Maybe the Browns didn't, and the Cardinals didn't, but the Bucks didn't rate very well with ownership either. And the Bucks were number 27. Todd got a B plus as a head coach, and the Glazers got a D. And then apparently there's a really bad smell in the locker room.
Oh, is that right?
So, yeah, that was good. But they love their nutritionist. So
Right.
and
We'll go to
strength
the next
and
one.
strength staff. So
Yeah.
well, I guess so. We're at time, and we're gonna catch some more of the combine,
Yes.
so we can come back and talk about that. And then it'll be so crazy because, like, the week after that, Vaughn, is the free agency frenzy.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so it is. You've said this before, but you are indeed correct that the NFL is a year-round sport, and
And
thank
stop.
God, because
Never
I don't know
stop.
about you, but I need the distraction.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It never stop. So yeah, look
Never
forward to
stop.
talking about more of it next week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, everyone, please give us a like, give us a follow, But First Football, and we will look forward to reconvening next week. So, Vaughn, good to see you as always,
Yes.
and peace.
See ya. Bye.
See ya.